Hey everybody, it's me, Vic. Today I wanted to talk about HDR and the YouTube HDR tags. There's specific metadata that's required for YouTube to actually recognize HDR content, whether you're uploading raw HDR footage or edited HDR footage. And I'm specifically talking about gaming because that's kind of where it was. I wanted to do HDR content, but gaming, and I wanted it to look really pretty. So that way, if you're on a standard dynamic range monitor or in RGB, depending on what you're viewing it in, you're able to see it in SDR. But then if you have something that's in HDR, you're able to see it and it looks pretty. So I went down a rabbit hole and we're going to get started here. The software that I'm using, and you can do this pretty quickly if you type in Google FFmpeg, and then you can actually type in, to, I guess, Google Gemini or whatever, like FFmpeg install. What's the fastest way, right? And it'll tell you, open up Windows Terminal or your command prompt and type in winget space install space FFmpeg. And if you're on Windows, right, you could do it manually as well, and there is a process. And if you're used to writing any kind of like command line or code line, then you're going to understand FFmpeg and how to write it. Well, I didn't want to have to do that for every single video, so I just kind of wanted to do like a bat file and then just have it do it in batch. In other words, any file that I drop in there will make sure that that metadata after editing in DaVinci Resolve is going to have the metadata needed so YouTube can actually see the HDR. Main reason was it was a workaround because, DaVinci Resolve is pretty costly for the HDR10, and that's like, what, $2.99 and change on US dollars. So I found a workaround, at least for right now, until like I can afford that, right? And once I can, then I can make another video on DaVinci Resolve. But there's plenty of them out there already who are using Studio, but I'm using the free version and I wanted to like edit those things. And I was like, I don't want to have to spend that kind of money right now until like I can afford to. Anyway, the Windows installer on FFmpeg, I'm using the builds from the gyan.dev, and this is going to be what I'm running. There's environments that you will have to change when it comes to setting this up if you're going to do it manually. So, there's a whole process. But if you want to do the faster route, let me pop this up here. It will literally tell you the fastest ways right here. On Windows, type this in, winget install FFmpeg, and then it'll do all of that fun stuff for you. It'll tell you what you need to do, which is restart. And then if you want to make sure that it's installed, you can verify it, right? So right here, run FFmpeg space dash version, and you'll be able to make sure that it's installed. It's the same thing, I believe, on Windows, if we're correct. Right, this is how we do it, because it'll do the version right here. So you would just type in WinR command, and then you would just type in FFmpeg. Like Google Gemini does come in handy for some things, but not all things. But like something simple like this, so that way you don't have to really mess around with doing it manually. It's pretty simple. So that's the first thing, right? Once you have that set up, the next thing that I would recommend is checking the metadata. So this is where I use MediaInfo, and there's another viewer that I use that already has this information kind of included. So for me, this would be moot if I was looking at it from the perspective of the viewer, but I like to look at it and make sure that the metadata is correct. And what I'm using, since I'm on Windows, is the Intel 64-bit. So I'm making sure that I'm using the installer for 64, but you do have different options just depending on your build. And MediaInfo is pretty cool. I actually showed it in another video. So let me pull up a file that I know is HDR. And just pulling up my video logs real quick here. We'll go to Elgato Studio, pop this open over here, and you all can see this, right? So if you can see it right here, I right-clicked and there's MediaInfo. I'm going to open this up. It's popping up on my other screen. And so this is what MediaInfo looks like. And if you go to View, you can go to Text, and then you'll see all of this information on the video, like the main 10, right? That's definitely a key item for HVEC or H.265. And that will actually show you right here. You see 10 bits on the bit depth You also see BT.2020 PQ, BT.2020 again, and that's how you know that this is going to be an HDR file, right? So all of this is raw data from the Elgato Studio that I did a recording on, and it's a small clip, right? And once you upload it to YouTube, this raw file here is going to include the HDR tag. No metadata updates or anything needed, right? But if I want to edit that file, well, that's kind of where DaVinci Resolve is going to come in handy. But the next thing that I'm going to talk about is actually the media viewer that I'm using. I was going to use VLC, but I couldn't really find what I was looking for HDR-wise in it. VLC is a really great tool, but it wasn't meeting the needs that I needed. So I'm using MPC-HC. And yeah, it's a little older, right? It looks a little archaic, but it serves its purpose for me to see things in HDR. So if we look here, right, you just go to the right here. So there's a whole bunch of releases, right? The last one was in 2017, but this thing is still great for HDR. Along with that, though, you're going to want to install the K-Lite Codec pack, and I do recommend doing the Mega on the download because that's going to have a few different codecs that you can include. And one of them, you can just set it up for HDR and it makes it a lot simpler. But these are going to be the two things that you're going to want to do if you're doing the viewer that I'm using. And speaking of the viewer, let me get back to that video that I had. Go to Elgato Studio, bring this over here. So if you can see, it looks a little washed out on the thumbnail, and that's because it's in HDR. So HDR always looks washed out. But you can go to View. Oh wait, you know what? This thing is so big. Here we go. Let me just shrink this down so that way I can navigate it a little easier for those who are like, where is all this information? So I'm going to View, I'm going to Options, and then I'm going to go to Settings, right? Now you can convert it to SDR. It is recommended. Oh, and I should probably tell you the navigation. So when you go to here, you're going to click on Output, right? And what they usually recommend for HDR, where is it? MadVR. MadVR will handle your HDR. You hit Apply, OK. I'm going to actually close out of this and restart the video. And then we're able to see that because right now it's converting it to SDR. But if I were to put this in HDR, I'd see it in HDR. Personally, I don't like doing that one, but let's go to Options O. I actually will go to MPC Video Renderer, go to Settings, and I will actually uncheck Convert to SDR. And the reason why is because if it's an HDR file, I want to view it in HDR, right? I want it to prompt me to like, hey, turn on HDR. So this is where that washed out video is going to look at. You saw what it looks like in SDR, now you're seeing what it looks like in HDR. So if I toggle on HDR, which I'm going to do right now, for this monitor anyway, it's just going to take a quick moment. And we probably have to redo that video. Now we're able to see it in true HDR. So what you're seeing is that it looked a little dimmer, and now there's HDR. And it looks really pretty. And, ooh, I have to fix one thing. Let me just fix that HDR profile real quick. Click on Open. There we go. All right, so I've actually calibrated my monitors to have HDR. So you saw the colors pop a little bit. It's because I actually had to change the color profile for HDR. So this is actually color calibrated for HDR now. And you can see the difference, right? It's very pretty. The sky is pretty. You can see the reds pop, the oranges pop from the chocobo. The tail is on fire. It's really beautiful. Look at Eric's outfit right here, right? It looks really good. So now I know that like everything's gonna look good in HDR. I can actually turn off HDR now because you've seen the difference between the SDR, right? Which is going to look pretty much close to what HDR is going to look at, but you get more colors in HDR. And so that's the reason why I wanted to do this, because it's like, okay, I've calibrated my monitors. That's probably the first thing you may want to do if you're really into HDR, right? And there's a really cool thing that I'm doing to bypass the Windows calibrated HDR, because I don't like what Windows does. I really don't. And that's going to be HDR in a nutshell as far as like the workflow that I have on like the raw content, right? Now the editing content piece we're going to get to, but let me talk about the calibration. So there's these programs that I use, which is DisplayCAL. I'm pulling everything up for you all. So this is one of them, and the other is going to be ColorControl. Now, the ColorControl is a GitHub. It is going to be a release. This thing, you know, I stumbled across a rabbit hole of HDR, and it's pretty great. So I've downloaded this for Windows. It's a ColorControl zip, right? And basically what it does is you get to tweak some settings instead of using the Windows HDR calibration, and you can actually do the calibration for your monitors and put them in HDR and get a better outcome than what you could with Windows calibrated HDR. It looks really beautiful, and I love the way the colors look. So I've created a HDR profile for that. It's what you saw when I actually loaded it on this monitor right here. And the next thing is, here we go, DaVinci Resolve. So there are some settings in DaVinci Resolve in order for me to edit these things, right? I'm going to show you the settings that are required. And then, of course, if you know how to edit or whatever clips you're doing, and really it just comes down to gaming clips, right? For me anyways, then it's going to be a lot easier. Oh boy, it opened up on my ultra wide. Hold on, y'all. Okay, it's going to be a lot easier for you all to actually have some kind of like method. And then there's a file that I have that I run this through after editing here with the HDR stuff. So that way I can actually upload it to YouTube and have the YouTube tag. I know it's a lot, right? But it goes pretty quickly. So this is in HDR. It's Spider-Man, of course, right? That's why it looks washed out, because this is in RAW. And the first thing that you're gonna do in your timeline is go to your project settings. And you can see that this is gonna be 4K 60. So what you're gonna wanna do is make sure that your data levels are full. You're gonna wanna make sure that when you're coming down to your proxy media format, you're gonna want DNX HRLB. You're gonna want your optimized media format to be in DNX HRSQ, and the same thing for your render cache. That's all you're gonna need in your project settings. This is going to be whatever your file is going to be at, right? Like if you're doing 1440p, you're probably gonna match your resolution to that. If you're doing it in 4K, it's gonna look identical to mine. I do recommend changing this to 60 FPS though, if you're recording 60, right? Because usually it'll do like True Cinema, which is like 24 for like video, movies. So just make sure that you change that if you're doing like anything gaming, as long as you're recording 60. And I'm going to talk about the OBS raw files too, because those actually also can be edited here in DaVinci, as well as uploaded raw without any edits to YouTube for the HDR tag as well. So that's the last piece of it. But we're going to talk about the settings in DaVinci Resolve for the editing piece. And then I'm going to pop open OBS and talk about the settings for OBS. So under your deliver page, right? After you're done doing your edits, your clips or whatever, you're going to make sure that your codec is H.265. And the reason for it, you could do AV1, right? You could, and it'll still load the information, but I do recommend for YouTube's sake, H.265. And you're gonna make sure that your encoding profile is gonna say main 10. And the reason why is because that's gonna be HDR. On your preset where it says balanced performance, balanced quality, leave it on balance. You don't need to change that. Rate control, you're gonna actually change constant bit rate to 70,000. So 70000, right? And the reason why is because if you're doing the edit, sometimes if you're looking at the video after it goes through this bat file, it may have it in different sections where it's looping, and you don't want that. So just make sure that you put 70,000 here. Now, under your advanced settings, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have your data levels full and retain the black sub and super white data. And then you're gonna put your color space tag as Rec 2020 and your gamma tag is ST2084. And then that's it, right? You wanna make sure that bypass re-encode when possible, and then you would just add that to your render queue, and then you would be able to export the data. Once you export this, it's going to obviously render the video. It's going to keep the HDR information, and then you can upload it to YouTube. So that's your settings for DaVinci Resolve. Now the last, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and pull up OBS, and then we'll get to the last piece. So for OBS, I'm just waiting for it to pop open here. And I probably need to change my profile to 4K HDR. Hold on, y'all. I'm not going to record anything here, but I will talk about the settings because this is really what you're going to want for HDR. So my capture card, right? I'm going to properties. I'm going to show you what I have. I have it set to 4K. And then I have the color space as Rec 2020 PQ. The video format, I leave it as any. The color range, you can do full, limited. You should really keep that on default. But in my case, the way that I've had things configured, it's going to be under full, and that will still be fine. Everything else, you don't need to worry about, right? So I'm just going to hit cancel on that because I'm not making any changes. It's set up the way that I want. But the next place that you need to go is actually under advanced. And you're going to want to make sure that your color format is P010 10-bit 420 2 planes. Your color space is going to be Rec 2100 PQ. You can actually move this to full or limited if you want to keep it on limited. SDR white levels, it depends, right? The standard is 300 at the bottom, but sometimes 203 might actually help you with certain things. So gauge it between 203 and 300, but leave the HDR nominal peak levels at 1000 nits. Everything else you don't need to change here. Like everything else is good. So this is what you're going to want to change. I don't need to change anything here. If you're doing a recording though, you're going to go to your output, you're going to go to your recording, and I want to talk about a couple of things here. So in OBS, right, you have the option of doing NVENC HEVC, which is H.265. I would recommend that one, or AV1. If you do choose the HEVC, right, you're going to want to make sure that your main profile is 10. If I were doing this right now, I would have this set up like this. I would actually change this to constant. I would change this down to 16 because I know my particular GPU can handle it, but you might be okay at 20 or maybe 18, just depending on what yours is. And I usually have my key intervals at 2. And then I actually have here this normal, I don't change it. And my B frames, I keep it at 4. That's what I would do if I was using the H.265. Now, when we change it to main 10, we know that that's going to be raw HDR. So that would be uploaded directly to YouTube, and it'll have the YouTube HDR tag. And the only way to view that is to make sure that your monitor is in HDR mode, which I'll show you in a minute. I did show it on another video, but you're going to want to make sure all of that is set up in order for you to actually have true raw HDR. That way you can get the HDR tag. And that would just be the metadata that would be included. So when you look in MediaInfo under text, you would be able to see those things. Now, if you're doing AV1, right, AV1 doesn't give you the option of main 10. And the reason being, and we'll look down here, you're just going to see that it says main, is because AV1 is already able to do those processes without you having to toggle things. I would like to see a main 10 because it would make it, at least for me, peace of mind, like, oh yeah, that's one extra step to make sure that it's going to be HDR, but it already records it because of what you've set up as far as for like your settings in the main. So I'm going to hit cancel because I didn't need to make any changes, right? So if you want to see my settings for AV1, we're going to actually go back to output, recording, and you're going to see I have it at 20 and 7 because I'm able to do that. I could actually dial this down to 16 if I wanted, but I only do 16 when I'm using the HEVC. It's just, they're smaller file sizes. Granted, 4K file sizes are really big, so it depends on what game I want to record in HDR, and that's going to be the settings. But again, you do want to make sure your advanced section is going to be matching something to this. And again, you can have on either limited or full, and it will still be a true HDR raw file. And then as far as for toggling on the HDR, so that way we can actually see the HDR tags, let me go ahead and toggle on HDR on this monitor real quick. and go to one of my particular videos. Oh yeah, we don't need this open anymore. I'm doing a whole bunch of things, but the program that I'm using to edit is DaVinci Resolve. They have currently a free version and a studio version, right? So, you know, you can use this if you want to as an editor. I don't use the Windows native editor. I haven't toggled around or haven't tried other options. I know there's some like Adobe, there's Final Cut for Mac, there's that Microsoft one. There's a whole bunch of them. And I think even CapCut might have HDR, but there's paywalls behind certain things, right? So I needed to work around. But here's the last part of it that I was going to talk about, the thing that I'm running. Like once I'm done with my DaVinci Resolve file, let me go to my HDR folder. Here we go. So I wrote all of this down so I can actually stay on track when I'm talking about it for you all. But I have different BAT files for different GPUs. This one is for an AV1 file. This one is going to actually be for my HEVC files. And this is why I labeled them this way. But and the AV1 is also NVIDIA. I should probably relabel that, but I'll do that later. So these BAT files are basically what I drag and drop a video into, and it starts to process that video to make sure that the metadata is correct before I upload it to YouTube, which gives me the HDR tag. I haven't tested AMD because I do not have an AMD GPU. So if somebody is interested in that, message me on Discord and I'm happy to share this with you, and you can let me know what the results are if it actually added the HDR tag for your YouTube video. I'm totally okay with it. Like, this is something that I plan to share with everybody, but I want to make sure that everything is working before I release it. But this is what the tool I've been using after my DaVinci Resolve edit, and then just dragging the video on top of this, and it will start working on that video metadata for me. You'll see a command prompt open up. As a matter of fact, I mean, not that I need to do it with an Elgato video, but let me pull up my raw Elgato video and show you what I'm talking about here. Here we go. Because it'll work with any file, right? So I'll just drag that over here. And what you'll see is that it's starting to work on the metadata for this video as if I treated it like an edit. So it'll render all of that in the background, and then once it's done, it'll just do its thing. And I'm actually gonna close it out because I don't really need to worry about it. But once it's done, you could just upload the video to YouTube and you're good, which is pretty cool. But that's how you make sure that FFmpeg is working, is you'll see something like that happen. But you want to make sure that it is installed properly before using these files, because this heavily relies on FFmpeg and nothing more. So, you know, if you're interested in testing it out for yourself, I'm happy to share. Now, down to the HDR videos, right? So let me pull up my YouTube Studio stuff real quick and go to my content, because as you can see, oh wait, did I put it in HDR? I'm like, I have to double check, did I do this? I had issues with Google Chrome yesterday, and I forgot that I changed the color profile. I had to force a color profile when I was actually doing color calibration. And when I didn't fix it, like reset everything, it wasn't changing the HDR tags for me. So I can tell you that we'll look at a DaVinci Resolve edit real quick here. And as you can see, it's showing HDR. So that's how you know that this is an HDR, that HDR is toggled on. And if you're not sure, right, I can show you. HDR, it's on for this particular monitor. So yeah, I have custom color calibrated HDR formats on the monitor, and then I toggle on HDR, and HDR just looks pretty. And I'm really excited about that, because it took me over a month just so that way I can make this video, make sure that everything was working, which means I had tested all of those little mini clips. I did little recordings here and there. I edited them. I made sure that things were working before actually coming back to this. And this all started with Elgato Studio, because like, oh, I can actually record in HDR. Elgato Studio 1.1 actually enabled HDR recording for the capture cards that I have, and I've been really wanting to test out HDR for the longest time. So I got really excited about that, and here we are. Now I've made a video on the HDR content, the tools that I'm using. There are other tools out there. Even YouTube has recommendations just for the YouTube HDR tag, but everything that I have tested has been working flawlessly, minus the AMD GPU stuff because I don't have one to test it out. So I hope somebody out there might want to test that and work with me on it just to make sure that it's working before I release those particular files out for people to use. And I do know that there are other people working on like an HDR editor, and I'm really excited because that eliminates this whole process for me. Anyways, thank you for watching.